Do you wanna know what's going round? See what's the talk of the town on Real Talk on the radio today.
And welcome to Real Talk Radio 97.5. You're listening to WKDW live streaming from Facebook, YouTube, and wherever our listeners are. I mentioned 97.5. We're still not up and running as far as the tower goes. We are working our way methodically through everything. But at some point, we're hoping to re-engage and get our listeners on the FM dial up to speed. But as far as the radio station is concerned, we're focused and thankful that we still have sponsors and that things are moving forward. We just have to work our way through all of the things in a transition period of time that most organizations go through. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us. And I do have to say I have a special guest in the house. I have Commissioner David Duval, but I've got to thank three of our major sponsors, Lions Title and Trust, Remax Palm Realty of Venice and Port Charlotte, and also the Hardin Insurance Group on Toledo Blade. So three major sponsors, three people are sticking with us and very thankful that we have them on board. Commissioner David Duval, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine. And John, I would also like to thank your sponsors because as I've told you before, from the very beginning of WKDW, I have always believed that community radio was a great thing for the city of Northport.
It is, and we're working our way through. The board is focused and working our way through the transition. But all of these things come with I think the best intentions across the board, and we're going to continue to operate through internet capabilities along with the on Facebook and YouTube, and even during the winter months or the hurricane months. I'm still reeling from the winters up north with my family up there, but it's a value to the city and the citizens, and we're going to work our way through all the things that it takes to hang in there and make things great again.
Wishing the best for you.
Well, I appreciate that, and I sent you over a text, and it's about the Argus Foundation, and I'll let you start there because my good friend Chuck English called me prior to the show, and if he's out there, he's probably going to give me a thumbs up right now because he didn't even have to comment on the show when I mentioned him. So I just go ahead and kind of start there with that report and kind of your insight on how you feel about that whole process.
Yeah. I've read some since I've been in office, and for your listeners, I only have been in office since the 16th of November. I was sworn in. And I've seen a couple of, articles, from the Argus Foundation, and this is my personal opinion. They just haven't been very complimentary to us. And just as a citizen, I look at it and say, this is not quite unbiased. This is, I feel it's a little bit unfair. Now, what Chuck is asking about is, about a report that the Argus Foundation asked, another organization to take up. And I did read that report. And I feel that report was fair, but it didn't tell the complete story. It left some things unsaid that could have been said. Again, speaking of agendas, sometimes, not everyone is unbiased in things. And I just ask that people, look at things and try to consider both sides of the story on things.
As you have come into this is your second time on now as a city commissioner, and so you the first time through, we kind of went through the oh my gosh, here I am at the intro, and I gotta say, you know, my ears are to the streets and I hear things, but I hear great things about you and Dimitri, and how things are going with you guys, and how you've embraced the challenges that are out there. Uh, can you give a overview of how you're dealing with these challenges, and bringing them into the David Duval world?
Um, I guess the overall word that I have to use is acceptance, because a lot. I I was on our charter review board for 4 years. I've been going to city meetings for many years. I moved here in 2008, and I don't know exactly when it was that I started going to city meetings, but I started to pay attention to what was going on in the city. So when I got elected, I kind of had some expectations that I knew a little bit about what was going on and what to expect. But then it hits you right in the face. And as you and I talked about before the show a little bit, sometimes the meetings and the scheduling of things. I related to you that back a couple weeks ago, we had a Florida League of Cities convocation up in Tallahassee for 3 days. And on my second day there at 5 p.m., I had a meeting in Tallahassee. I also had a meeting scheduled with a different organization in Sarasota, and a third one in Venice, all at the same time. I would like to say that I try to handle my responsibilities, and I do feel that this position I'm in is a responsibility. Okay, I asked people to vote for me, and I am here to serve those people. And if I don't get everything done, that's being requested, I feel like, oh man, I'm just not up to par on this. But using that word acceptance, I have to accept. Number one, I just ain't perfect, and I never will be. Number two, sometimes you have some unrealistic expectations of yourself, even. And other times, there's some things that are just beyond your control. And
That's bad.
Yeah. And overall, I'm going to use the excuse that I'm still new to this. I want to have at least the first 6 months, if not the first year, to say, I'm really melding into what this job is. And I hate using that word job. For me, this is a service position, but it certainly is a lot of work. There have been times already when I've been here at City Hall, and I am in my office at City Hall right now. And after this, at about 5:30 tonight, I'll be doing another city function, another part of my job. I am an alternate on the teen court board for Sarasota County. And to the listeners, if anyone's never been to see a teen court session, you will be amazed at what these kids can do. And these are real cases. This is not Johnny skipped school. These are real legal cases, and students act as prosecutors, lawyers, juries. First time I went, I was just amazed. And I'm trying to work on getting some of the people, I'll call them students. I don't want to call them kids. I don't want to call them children.
Young adults.
Young adults. Thank you. I want to get them involved in our city advisory boards. We have positions for youth members on some of our advisory boards. The Charter Review Board that I was on, that's one that there's a position there for a youth member.
Yep.
You hear in the city of Northport more than once the phrase community of unity. And there's no better way to have a community of unity than to have the citizens participate. And to have our young people, our young adults, start to get involved in the city that they live in. That's just an amazing opportunity. I come from the generation, where children were meant to be seen and not heard. And for the opportunity for a young person to participate in some form of city government, it just amazes me that we have that here. What an opportunity for our city and for our youth. That's just one of the things, There's good parts about what I'm doing, and then there's parts that are difficult for me. Citizens get in touch with me by telephone, by text, by email. And sometimes, just once in a while, I'll get a win. There were some folks here in the city that had concerns about where a bus stop was placed. And it was, they said it was in a dangerous place. So I went and checked it out, and it wasn't a dangerous place. And I thought it was just a mistake. But as you know, John, the city does not control school bus stops. That's Sarasota County School District. But by those citizens getting in touch with me, I was able to get in touch with, city management here, who got in touch with the school district. And in 2 days, that school bus got moved a block further north, away from the heavy traffic, and it got turned around so the children are getting off on a sidewalk. That was a win. Then there's things that, don't work out quite so easily. Sometimes people get in touch with me. One lady got in touch with me, and unfortunately, the city did pass a new ULDC last summer.
Yep.
And as a result of that, some people used to have a residential piece of land, and now it's not residential anymore. And one lady got in touch with me and said, she was right up to the point of, putting in for permits. And now she's got a property that she can't build her retirement home on. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot that as one person, can do about that. Other than, I do have a suggestion for her. There are some folks, there are a couple of organizations in the city of Northport, and don't fault me if I'm wrong here, because I can't remember everything exactly, but I think there are two organizations. One might be Northport Real Estate Investors, and another one might be Northport Property Owners. But these are people who own land. They're investors in the city, and they own properties in both the newly revised commercial zones and also in the other parts of the city that are still listed, for family homes. And these people might be someone that this lady could talk to. There's two gentlemen in particular that I talked to a few weeks back, and I may get in touch with them to see if maybe they can help her out. Maybe they can trade properties. So, sometimes I can't do things, and sometimes I can just try.
Well, and do you find yourself sitting in a different seat than you were when you were in the audience now that you're a commissioner? Because the problems aren't different. They're more focused towards you now versus I don't have to worry about it anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. As a citizen, you go to the meetings and you get your 3 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, 3 minutes at the end of the meeting to talk about anything you wish. And then when every topic on the agenda comes up, you get 3 minutes. But after you give your 3-minute spiel, you can sit down, you can get up, you can go home, and you can forget about it.
Yep.
When you're sitting on the dais, people are looking at you, and then, they're, making comments afterwards, like, I don't think they're listening, and the issue doesn't go away. Okay. In some way, shape, or form, we have to deal with the issue. Sometimes we just have to say, no, we can't do that.
Right. And I liked your story about the land side of things, because the ULDC didn't pop up overnight. That was a long, drawn out discussion. And I'm not going to pick on one individual who obviously wasn't staying connected to her property as it transitioned. And I say this a lot. If you own something, don't let someone else run it. And that's what she did. The rightful owner of that property should have been connected to the property so that her investment that she had purchased for that length of time was focused and ready to go. In saying that, it does also make me want to say, when you're okay with that and you've given the right, there's not a whole lot you can say about it anymore, because you've kind of built that in to the process, and so that's a tough call for a seasoned commissioner, let alone a brand new one. But I like the fact that you talk about it, because getting involved at any level with your government, so you understand what the government is doing within the city limits, that's a good thing.
Yeah. And what you say, what the government's doing, it just popped a thought in my head. This is something came up recently. The other day in our local newspaper, there was a little column. It was a story about what happened at a city commission meeting recently, where we had on our consent agenda, in other words, we just voted without speaking on the dais about this topic. We voted to okay a memorandum, between our police force and the federal government's ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And in the paper, it said, we just agreed to it and we didn't even talk about it. Well, again, that's only part of the story. I do have a one-on-one with our city manager each week. And as part of that one-on-one, that's just the city manager and myself. He related to me, on our agenda, consent agenda, we had this item, and I talked to him about it. And he told me, that this comes down from the government up above us. And according to state statutes, where did I write that? Yeah. According to state statutes, we're going to have our police force train and work with ICE. And that's governed under Florida statutes 908.107, 908.104. And basically, it's a mandate from the state. It says we will do that. Okay, so the fact that we didn't discuss it and vote for or against it on the dais, we just let it go by and said, yeah, we're doing that. It's because we were told that we have to do it. And if we don't, we're going to be paying some fines. We're going to be against the law, against Florida law. And so that was a mandate, and that wasn't quite explained in the paper. And I'd like to get that out to people that, some things here in city government, and this is a part of a continued battle that cities and municipalities have, is that the government's above us. Sometimes they make rules and say we have to follow them. And like my first question to the city manager when he and I were talking about this was, well, if our officers are going to train and they're going to go work with ICE and they're not here in the city working with ICE, maybe they're somewhere else in the state working with ICE, who's paying them? And unfortunately, we are.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure you've heard the term before, an unfunded mandate. It's unfortunate, but we don't always have control.
I will say I'm glad you approached this like you did, because people need to understand that while you guys are our local government, and we do talk about this with other commissioners. We talk about this with our city manager, Jerome Fletcher, with staff. When things happen like this, they are very transparent. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot to be transparent with. It's pretty much, we're doing it, and here's why. That leverage point that they have just for the ICE side of things, it doesn't stop there. There's other things that happen too that you guys are privy to, but it's not a hot topic because it's actually levied down from up above.
Yeah,
So this happens it actually happens more frequent than people give it credit for.
Yeah. It's how much time can I spend on the dais talking about something that I don't have any control over? We do have things that, that we have to work on.
When you were sitting out in the audience before you got elected, was that a hot button for you when you were sitting out front? Was that something you thought about on a regular basis, or now that you're in office and you're seeing it portray itself as almost routine at some levels? Is it different than when you were out there fighting for the cause?
No, not really, John, because when I was out there, I used to read the agendas before I went to the meetings. So I had an idea of, what was going on.
Yeah.
And I got to know a number of commissioners. I got to know a number of people in the staff. And if I had questions, people answered things for me.
They did.
And sometimes I would go into a meeting with, one attitude and then come out, hey, I got some answers, maybe there's another side to this. And that's part of being involved, getting to know that there is some transparency out there.
Right.
And if you involve yourself, you get the chance, to find out all the different sides of the issues. A lot of this, and with city government, this just is, there's things that citizens want, there's things that citizens need, there's things the city need, there's things the city wants, there's the fact that nobody wants to pay for it. It's everything, everything comes down to money.
Yep.
Are we doing things the right way or are we not? Sometimes we just have to do our best, and it's hard. I was looking at some things online this morning, and well, this has to do with our police station. and someone said, we shouldn't be spending money on a police station until all of our homeless people have shelters and have food. Okay. Well, if we did not have a police station to build and city government decided to use city money and house all of the homeless people and feed them all, I guarantee that a whole bunch of people would be saying, what are you doing with our money?
Yeah.
Um,
I think more so than any other hot button you've ever had in your life. I think that would get exposed real quick.
Yes, definitely. I see a question here from Mr. English.
Yep.
Says, here's my perspective on the rewrite. It was a municipal land grab and a taking, and I've been aware of it for over 7 years from day one. It was, and it is a controversial issue. Let's see. He says, having been a part of the review for 7 years, rewrite municipal grand grab commissioner, do I believe the public was fully informed of the impact of the property and by the boy, there's two sides to the answer to that question, and it's not an easy question to answer. The part of it is that yes, the citizens could have been informed more, but I will put a caveat to that in that, as Chuck said, he was involved in this for 7 years. The ULDC rewrite did not happen behind closed doors, and it did not happen in the space of 2 or 3 days' time.
7 years is a long time.
Yes, people had opportunities to know that things like this were coming. And it is very unfortunate that some people own properties that were, zoned so that you could build your three bedroom, 2-bath house on, and now it's commercial property. But we also have to, and it is unfortunate, but we also have to look at the fact that this city, it's geographically, the geography of the city, okay, this was a swamp. And when this city was designed, they drained the swamp. And by draining the swamp, what they did was they created an area that has very few east-west roads, which means we need money for infrastructure. And this place was designed as just little retirement homes. Well, little retirement homes don't pay enough money to finance all the infrastructure that's needed for a city this size. And that's why, I think the city of Northport, they say we're about 8% commercial, and we need to be about 30% commercial to be able to pay for everything. And it's unfortunate that, and I'll put it right out there, there are losers in this situation. But overall, for the good of the city, for the future, something had to be done. And we've got to continue. This is just one of my things that I want to do before I get out of office, is to see the funding come through and get going on the Yorkshire exit for a number of reasons. And one of them is getting that commercial development that we need on the eastern side of the city to help pay for all the things that the city needs.
Yep, I'm with you. Just so you know, he put this up there too, that when it started, it was the last 3 years, it came to be interesting, preliminary focused on economic development and growth. And that economic development and growth side of things, that we've got the growth, we're always going to have residential growth because that's a majority of our land. But that commercial base and the density of how we grow as a city is vitally important to the sustainability of the city, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people on this earth that are like me, baby boomers. And baby boomers are retiring by the millions. And where do you think they're going?
South.
Okay. April 21st of 2008, I was standing in my kitchen in Lake Effect Snow Country, about 45 minutes north of Syracuse, New York, 8 miles from the shores of Lake Ontario. And the snow outside my window was still above my knees. And I got on the phone, called a real estate dealer in Sarasota, said, hook me up with somebody. I'm flying down to buy a house. And the next day I was on an airplane and now I'm here. And there are millions of people like me. So the growth is coming. But we have to accommodate that growth. And that growth means you have to have the infrastructure to support it. And you have to have jobs for people. Not everyone is a retired person. The city of Northport is a young city. It's getting younger all the time. I think they say the average age now is like 45. I went to here at City Hall, out on the city green a few weeks ago was the Ukrainian festival. And what impressed me most was the number of children that were there. I'm used to going, to events and seeing, all people my age. That told me how many young people there are here. The other thing was at one of our town halls, the Sarasota County School District had some folks show up and told us about all the schools that we're going to have to build. Told us about the overcrowding in some of our schools. That tells me that it's young. And it's just a fact that this city is going to grow, and we have to, commercial has got to be a part of it. People have to have jobs. I'm not sure if I've had this conversation a number of times since I was elected, and I'm not sure if I talked to you about it, John, but how I got elected. This is my opinion. Monday to Friday through the campaign, 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the morning, I stood on the corner of Toledo Blade, Plantation, at the last stoplight before you get on 75. And I watched thousands upon thousands of cars head north and get on 75 so they could go south towards Fort Myers or north towards Sarasota to go to work. What I also noticed was that there were a whole lot of people coming into the city in the morning, and a good share of them all were wearing bright green, bright orange, or bright yellow shirts because they're all involved in the construction industry. This city is growing. It's building. Okay, well, we need it to kind of even out. We need to get some jobs here. And that ULDC change is something that will help facilitate that. And as I said, I want to see that Yorkshire exit, for a number of reasons. I want to see that opened up.
It's coming.
It's coming, but I want to see it get here a little faster.
Yeah, and I think they needed to because of the hurricanes and what we have coming in. It seems like almost a yearly basis at this point. And Kings Highway is very, very much in a almost a trauma situation during hurricane season, and let alone Toledo Blade, which is also. So you really have 3 exits back to back to back with Sumter being a pressurized area, and we found that out through the flooding that we had there. If that goes down and 75 goes down, we need some strategic planning for another exit, because Kings Highway and Toledo Blade, if Sumter shuts down, it can't deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And those exits are important for so many different reasons. Another one of these things, I'm sure a lot of your listeners, are paying attention to, our referendum questions. And one of those referendum questions has to deal with a transfer station. And that transfer station is being planned for out in that area near the future Yorkshire exit. And I'm going to give you my opinion on that transfer station. For me, it's one of the first things that popped up in my priority list. And it's because it will pay for itself in a number of ways. When I got here in 2008, every school bus every day came from Sarasota, picked up our kids, brought them to school. At the end of the day, picked them up, brought them home, and then every school bus went back to Sarasota. That doesn't happen anymore. All of those school buses are now parked off Toledo Blade by the emergency hospital. Why did that change? Because it made sense. And that transfer station, instead of every time one of our solid waste trucks fills up, having that employee drive it to Sarasota to unload, when we can have a transfer station, have it dumped here, have it compacted, have it put into tractor trailers, saving millions of dollars on, fuel cost, truck cost, employee labor costs. And as an added bonus, the location is going to be very close to the line between Charlotte County, Sarasota County, and not that very far from DeSoto County, which offers us in the future. We develop this facility, other governments may use it and actually be a revenue source for us. So, that issue,
I've had Frank Lama on, and we've talked about the transfer station quite a bit, and along with the fact that I think your perspective on that is very accurate, because they've actually earned the right to make a suggestion like that because of what they've done with recycling and how they've implemented that, and their target for the reduction of dollars and wasted vehicle hours and man hours that come along with that. So that really, if the citizens need to learn anything about that one particular item, they really need to start paying attention to what the public works people have really done to prove their net worth.
Yeah, and I've been here since 2008, and I've lived in other communities.
Yeah.
And the community I lived in when I grew up, and the community I lived in, most of my working life. If I wanted the services, if I wanted solid waste services, I paid for them myself from a vendor, or I went, we used to call it the city dump, I went there myself. Right. Here in this city, every Friday morning, okay, at my house, my solid waste gets picked up. My recyclables, 1 week it's the paper, the next week it's the the glass and plastics, and my wife and I have a yard waste barrel, and they pick that up, and it's a very reasonable fee, and it's and you get a couple of bulk pickups a year, and they're just excellent. As you said, they've proven, their worth to this city. And just this idea of this transfer station, it's just going to save so much more money.
So you hit on the police station, and you've hit on the transfer station. And Chuck English was wanting to know your perspective as it relates to preservation and protection of the natural environment of our community, especially publicly owned property.
Definitely, I feel some of these issues.
And throw in there, he said, "Sorry, natural resources."
Yeah, Chuck knows me personally, and he knows that yes, I am totally involved in protecting our environment. We used to have a tree fund. I guess we still do have a tree fund, but now we have an environmental division. That environmental division has a goal of maintaining a 34% tree canopy. And there's a goal for this year. I looked up last year's budget, and as part of the budget process, that environmental division has a goal of planting 500 trees this year. And I'm looking at that to make sure we do get those 500 trees planted. Our environment here, anything we can protect, like the Warm Mineral Springs, the Legacy Trail, that's part of our environment. I want to see that happen. Anything we can do to protect our environment, I'm all for that, and I'll try to do it.
Robin had mentioned here, hi Robin, the unfortunate reply, which has been the standard for our city, is that housing comes first, no matter where we put it, and the environment always suffers. I don't tend to agree with that statement, but go ahead.
When it comes to that, I have ideas, and I guess, I'm going to, again, I am a commissioner, but I'm speaking as one person here, okay? I do not speak for the commission as a whole, okay? We do that on the dais, okay? But I have spoken with different people. I've had this idea in my head for a number of years. When it comes to something like our land, I've had this idea in my head where, and especially with monies available from the tree fund, maybe we could use a little bit of that money, and we could start a program and maybe try to buy 2 lots together. Buy one lot from someone, buy another lot next to it from someone else. And then, number one, we could sell those 2 lots as one big lot, which would encourage people to maybe leave some of the trees on the lot instead of clearing everything when they build their house. Secondly, having one house on 2 lots, you'd be using less of the city's utilities. There'd be less wear and tear on the roads. And this program could be self-sustaining, because if you buy one lot and you pay $20,000 for it, and you buy another lot for $20,000, you're not going to sell the 2 of them together for $40,000. You're going to sell them for $60,000. Okay, so this little program could be repeated over and over again. Someday I'd like to convince somebody in the city to do something like that. But I do. And again, that's just been my idea.
I want to stay on the topic of housing for a minute, and Robin, clarify if I'm going down the wrong path. But it seems to me that when this whole thing started with the growth, it's the cutting of the trees, the clear cutting of the areas, and yes, while the housing market and the tax dollars seem to be first, the right to do that is actually owned by the developers that own their property, or the individuals who own the property. Um, every city does this. Every city goes through it. I haven't seen a city yet that's 98% trees. There's probably one out there somewhere, but it's probably 200 people. We're approaching 97. Well, we're at 97,000 now, and the projects that are out there, I think the city, if they would have done what you said, Commissioner, is that they would have bought up more of these lots when they were $2,000 and $3,000 a piece, uh, versus doing it now. And then, how about ye citizens that are out there bitching about all this? Why didn't you buy up these $1,500 or $2,000 lots so that nobody could do it? We're asking for forethought of a situation that are what parts of our city aren't owned already. That's the hardest part.
Yeah. A lot of what we're dealing with in this city right now comes to us as a result of what's been before, and whether what was done before was right or wrong. We have to deal with what we have today, and we can be environmentally conscious, and I as a person, will try and do that. But we also have to be conscious of the fact that everything has to be paid for, and everything has to be paid for, not just in dollars. There's a cost for everything. Everything we do costs. Right now, we have another issue that's going to be coming up in the referendum, and it has to do with utilities. We've got to enlarge in a 30-inch pipe, and nobody people say that $17 million, I think, is the figure of what the city wants to borrow. People are like, we don't want our taxes raised, spending $17 million on this. But people keep moving here. And the utilities we have get used more. That 30-inch pipe brings treated wastewater to our utilities department to an injection well. And it has been overused. When we had our hurricanes and our storms last summer, the ponds from that pipe got overfilled, and we had a couple of spills. And I wrote this down. Let's see, wastewater treatment. Yeah. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection has issued a consent order to upgrade. Okay, if we don't upgrade that pipe, if we don't spend that $17 million, they're going to start out with $1,000 a day fine. Okay?
Can I ask a question? Why are you guys doing this, or is someone else doing this to us?
And again, John, okay, I work for the city, okay. That department I just mentioned, Department of Environmental Protection, that's not our city government. That's up above us. Again, there are things that we get told we have to do. Now, if we can stop people from moving here, and if we could, stop using everything we have, well, then maybe we won't have to build anything more. But we do have to. It's, there are things we just don't have a choice on. Do I like having to spend that money? No. And while we're at it, let's talk a little bit for a minute about the Price Boulevard widening project. If any people that are listening here in the last week, including today, have driven up and down Price Boulevard between Toledo Blade and Sumter, I hope they're noticing that things are going on. This is not a dream. This is not a promise. This is not something that's going to be shoved down the road for later on. It's happening. And it's something that's been needed for years. And when people think about the city spending $100 million, $115 million, borrowing $115 million for a police station now, if we don't do it now, imagine what it's going to cost someday down the road. And what services are we going to lose in the meantime? We have a pretty good crime rate as a city here. Price Boulevard, I think initially when they were talking about it was going to be $5 million. Well, as a city commissioner, I had to sit and vote to rob Peter to pay Paul a couple weeks back. We agreed to take about $13 to $14 million from other projects so that we could get Price Boulevard started. Okay, was that something I wanted to do? We took $1,950,000 out of the tree fund. It's going to be used as part of the Price Boulevard project for landscaping. But did I like taking that money? No. But the Price Boulevard project has to happen. And it will happen. This is not, it's not a hopefully, it's going to happen.
We've already rolled up a lot more cost because we didn't do anything before.
Yes.
I have another question, and I know that we're almost to 4:00, so we're going to definitely run over a little bit. But this one's from Carmine, real quick, who texted me over a question. The Benderson warehouses that are out here on Toledo Blade, there used to be a endless waiting list for companies to come in there. I think they're at 100% occupancy now, and we could use more. And I believe that anytime that Benderson hears more, he's already thinking building more, because there's dollar signs that definitely get generated into his account. How do you think that the Toledo Blade corridor is developing? And I will personally say that I had one of the commissioners from Charlotte County who walked up to me and said, wow, just wow, I can't believe what's happened on Toledo Blade. So that we're being recognized even south of us for the construction that's happening on the Toledo Blade corridor.
Toledo Blade, okay, particularly those Benderson buildings that you see. We city commissioners, some city staff, we went to tour those a number of weeks back, kind of as an opening. And, I learned a lot of things. I actually got jealous of the Benderson group, because one of the facts they told us was that the money that was at risk to build those projects was all their money. They didn't have to go to the banks. They didn't have to go to the taxpayers and say, we want to borrow this at such an interest. They've got the money. They have the land, and they got it done. And to me, there's a number of reasons that I like those. Number one, they are going to bring in jobs. Number two, they're in the exact perfect spot. Okay? They're not overlooking somebody's. If you look and see where all those warehouses are, there's nobody's backyard right outside their doors, right outside their parking lot. They're right next to the entrance to 75. This is what we need that extra exit for down in the eastern part of the city, Yorkshire area. Now, the Toledo Blade corridor, there are some things that I do not care for about the Toledo Blade corridor. And right now, we have, there are plans to build communities in the northeast corner of 75 and Toledo Blade. And right now, because we don't have that Yorkshire exit, all the exits of those new communities are going to be onto Toledo Blade. And that's going to cause us some more problems with, with traffic. People in the estates area are going to see more traffic from that, and they're not going to be happy about that.
Sure.
It all comes down to infrastructure. These things, have to be done. But as far as that commercial development on Toledo Blade, I think it's great. I really do.
The other side of that, and let me sign off on the streaming for WKDW Radio. You're listening to Real Talk Radio. Join us on Friday. I will have our very special guests, the new executive director, Ken. He will be our guest, along hopefully with former Commissioner Joe Luke, who's very active with Meals on Wheels. We've got a very special show with them on Friday and upcoming events. So please join us on Friday at 3:05 for Northport Meals on Wheels. So thanks for listening in as we continue with this discussion here for a couple more minutes. You had said something that I find very interesting, because you said Benderson came in, had the money, cleared the land, built the buildings, didn't ask for anything. We lost. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not picking on Robin, because I live on the road. Pretty much loved looking at the trees when I drove in. Loved the environment. It is a shock to the system. And while I am a tree hugger, I love the trees. I love everything about it. I understand the growth side of it too. But you kind of gave the definition of what is happening in our city with the land that's owned. Is people have the money, they're building what they're building, they're clearing the land, they're moving things around, and things are getting stirred up. And it has to do with the environment, it has to do with the wildlife, it has to do with all those things. And you said something very profound. How do you stop it as a commissioner? How is it that you can stop it as a commissioner?
Yeah. As a commissioner, one thing, John, that I preached this, I don't know how many times in my life I've said this. The one constant in life is change. There is no stopping change. Okay? Throughout our lives, our health changes, our age changes, our families change, our situations change. And being a young city, relatively speaking, and being situated where it's at, and being the fact that we have baby boomers that are retiring and don't want to deal with the snow and the cold, this city is going to change. And as a commissioner, I can't stop that. I can only try, while I'm in office, to try to guide that with an ear to the needs of the city and the wants of the citizens. Okay, I'm here to try to serve my fellow citizens in the best way that I can, totally understanding that I don't control everything. I'll try to work with businesses. I'll try to work with environmentalists. I'm one of those people that wants to see the environment kept as natural as possible. But I also, understand that I don't run everything.
Well, Chuck had posted something here, and this is probably going to be more towards Chuck and Robin because maybe they can educate me, and maybe you know this already. Because I'm clearly not in the know of this question. Back to them, the Northport Environmental Conservancy. I know that that's a group of people buying up properties. Is that conservancy part of that 34%, or is that an add-on to the 34% that the Environmental Resource Department that we have is trying to keep as far as the canopy?
Nope, they are two separate entities. The environmental
So then, if they're buying it up like they say, and they have that ability, they should get busy and increase the canopy development higher than the 34.5% that our goal is, right?
Well, the city, as they look at it now, this is just my take on things.
Thanks, Robin.
The city wants to maintain 34% canopy. That's the goal. Now, the Environmental Conservancy, a lady named Barbara Lockhart, you may know her or you may not. I met her years ago.
Most people who've been here more than 10 minutes know who she is.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if Barbara's listening, hi.
Barbara Lockhart. She started up this environmental conservancy, and she has been buying properties and putting them, under the heading of conservation. Okay, all the trees will not be cut on those lots. She's saving those lots. I applaud what she's doing, what she's done. Her limitation is she started this as one person and got help from the people she believed in, and it's all been done through donations. Okay, and anything that they have bought now is preserved, and it will be part of that tree. The city can count that as part of their 34%, but the city's not responsible for that. They're two separate entities. That's a private organization that's doing that.
I want to clarify something you just said, because I would hope that what you said was our conservancy department was focused on 34%, and anything that other entity that Barbara has, that's an add-on to the 34%. That would never be commingled and then looked at as the total 34%.
No, it'll be part of the 34%. I mean, 34% of if you say that we want our city to be 34% canopy, that means you want to have 34% of the land covered by trees, by shade, leaves, okay? Whether the government owns all that land and does it, or whether someone else does it, it's all part of 34%. Okay. Barbara Lockhart's group are doing what they can on their own without the government's help. I would like to see, because we have that tree fund, which is a result of when developers clear a lot, they pay a mitigation fee. Certain trees, certain size, certain age, when they cut those trees, they pay a fee for that. It goes into the tree fund. Well, now the tree fund is being used to help fund our environmental department that we have.
Yep.
So I would like to see our environmental department from the city maybe be able to take a little bit of that money and help out that conservancy group. If it starts out, if it's just $40,000 or $50,000 to buy 2 lots together and then sell those lots. And a lot of people won't like this idea, but sell those 2 lots, make a profit, keep that profit towards buying some more lots. And after you've done, you buy 2 and sell them as 1, you buy 2 more, sell them as 1. After you've done that 4 times, you've got $40,000 profit. And that $40,000 profit, now you can buy 2 lots that you don't have to sell. You can keep those 2 lots. But to keep the program going, it's something that would just be self-sufficient. It would not cost the city a whole lot. And the lots that you buy and then sell, you can somehow ask, I don't know if there are legal ways to get people that buy those lots to leave some trees on the lot. Once somebody owns something, do you really have any control over what they do with it? In some respects, like for zoning, you can. But once somebody buys something, what they do with it is up to them.
Are we looking at, and this is from Sean Kirkpatrick, but are we looking at more east side parks and rec development areas right now?
We definitely, the majority of our population is the center of the city and going west, Population-wise, our eastern side of the city, we just don't have as great a population. As that section of the city gets developed, definitely we're going to need more parks and recreation. There are plans about, having another community center out on the eastern side of the city. The city does have some land out there. Yes, definitely. I don't know what all the plans are and when they'll come to fruition, but yes, as far as parks and recs, definitely we're going to have more on the eastern side of the city.
Well, we're kind of lopsided right now. So I know that in the past 8 to 10 years of broadcasting, I've had Parks and Recs on here. I've had commissioners on here, current, past, and our city manager Jerome Fletcher, and we've talked about these things. I'm curious. Maybe the next time you come on, or we can. I know that you used your 2 to. You kind of hit your limit for the year, but hopefully we can have you back on again, and maybe you can check into the priority list that they're talking about. Robin says that they've been waiting years for the priority list from them. Everybody has chimed in on it. Chuck and herself and Barbara and many others. So maybe that could be a starting point for you to kind of nibble away and see about coming back on and even having that conversation, or at your next meeting with city manager, kind of dropping the dime and saying, hey, be ready for this.
Actually, John, at our last city meeting that we had on the dais, we talked about, basically I'll call it a strategic plan. We are going to have a study done of our parks and recs. We talked about this at the last meeting, a study done, because we do have to look to the future, and we have to look to, what we're spending on, making sure it's the right things. And I'll just give this as a small example of something that just did change recently. Some people didn't understand it. Some people didn't like it, but we have the Morgan Center with a lot of recreational activities taking place there. We also have right here in front of City Hall, we have another recreation facility. Well, they both have gyms in them, workout areas, for people that,
Yep.
Okay. Well, yep. It was brought up at one of our meetings that there's a new Planet Fitness that's opening up right here close to the intersection of Price and Sumter. And that's very close to the center we have right here near City Hall. So the suggestion was made, maybe we could use, and this is what happened, we're going to change the use of the activity center, the recreation center right here near City Hall. We're going to take away the free weight room and the walking machines and things, okay? Because we can get a commercial entity to do the same thing for basically, the same cost, and we'll get tax revenue from that. And now we're going to be able to use that center. We're going to change. We're not closing it down. We're changing the use. They're talking about we're going to have a child well care facility, like, a place for, people to bring their children, to take care of their young children. So what we're doing is we're just changing that recreational facility. We're not closing it down. Some people said, oh, we're going to close it down. We're not closing it down. Have you heard anything about that before?
I did not. That never got passed on as far as any conversation with me.
Yeah, well, that happened at one of our recent meetings. Is we decided that we should do something about that. And at our last meeting, we did discuss, and there's going to be a study done about our recreational department. Personally, I think if we don't have the best recreation department in the country, we've got to be very close to it. If anyone, just the things that, as a citizen, the things that I've done since I've been in this city, and I'm talking about kayaking, I'm talking about the parks, the trails that I've been on, all the different facilities, watching my wife's daughter using the facilities, in high school, being on the soccer team, being the goalie for the soccer team. This city has more recreational facilities and opportunities than anywhere I've ever been in my life. Warm Mineral Springs, the Aquatic Center.
Yep.
It's amazing here. Legacy Trail. You're going to be able to go, from Sarasota and eventually down, to Naples. This is amazing. For a city this young. Our recreation department, all the different things the recreation department does. In the past few days, haven't there been 2 different egg hunts? One egg hunt in the daytime, one in the evening. Look at the Poinsettia Parade. How well that's attended. The Saturday mornings that I've spent, community yard sale, that's part of recreation, part of parks and recreation. I've made use of that a couple of times, getting rid of stuff around my house and making a profit on it. Our parks and recreation, the people that have been running that have been doing one heck of a job.
Well, and I've watched our Parks and Rec do some really cool things, and you talked about this earlier, and I thought we were around 54 on our average age. If we're at 45 now, that's going to be insane for the state of Florida to be one of the youngest, because we're surrounded. Now, I think Port Charlotte is right there on our trail as far as the population and age goes. But the further south you go, even into Fort Myers, that climbs. It goes. Estero climbs. Naples definitely climbs. Average age is probably in the 70, 78 range. I think Venice is 74. Sarasota goes higher. those Parks and Rec departments in those communities, they look at things a lot different than our current Park and Rec department. And the one thing I know from talking with Robin and Chuck English and you and other commissioners, our and even the past commissioners, our Parks and Rec is bar none at a level that you have to wrap your arms around, because they're a value for our kids who outside of the Parks and Rec department. You take it away, they're on the streets, and I got to tell you, we talked about change. People were leaving New York City in droves, and the last I checked, nothing's changed in New York City. The buildings are still there. They haven't planted more trees. They haven't done any of those things. And I'm not picking on anybody by any stretch of the imagination, because when I went back to Columbus, Ohio, it changed. Did I like it? No, didn't like it, because where I lived has now become the worst place to live. It used to be the best place to live. So things go through cycles. The reason we go through cycles here is that we're new, and we're cycling from trees to houses, and then we're going to cycle from houses to the old section again, and which we did that already. We revamped the older section and kind of rejuvenated that area, and we'll do it again. That's just what cities do. Unfortunately, I know that we're at 421. I definitely want to have you back on the show, because I think you enjoyed it, and I think the people enjoyed talking with you. I wanted to thank you for being part.
I do appreciate it. One thing that I want the citizens of the city of Northport to take away from this is that I want to see more of our citizens participate. Whether they like the things I do or don't like the things I do, I want to see them participate. The more people that we have, the more opportunities we have. Like your radio station. I've always, you've heard me say this before. What an opportunity! What a prize it is for this city. The fact that we have Punta Gorda Airport so close. I mean, we have so many advantages here that I'm just very appreciative of where I live, and you're part of that. And I think
the listeners are part of that. The city is part of that. Chuck English, I promise you, I'm gonna ask him this question to leave on. He says, you all are squeezing the hell out of Legacy Northport.
When it comes to you all includes all of our citizens. You all is us, and us is all of us encompassed in change. And as I said earlier, change is the only constant. Okay? Whether it be good, bad, whether we like it or not, change is happening every day.
Absolutely. Commissioner Duval, thank you so much for being part of Real Talk. And please share, like this page, give us some love out there in the world. And like I said, this coming Friday, let's have a good time with the Meals on Wheels of Northport and their upcoming venue and changes that they've got there. Ken Stroh-Schneider, Jill Luke, they're going to be part of it, and look forward to talking to you guys on Friday. But David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, John.
All right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.